Hi everybody, I'm Diana. Welcome to Sew in Common, home of the Build-A-Quilt system. And today we are going to be doing our quilt lab in the hoop, the quilting of the Kaleidoscope quilt. So that's kind of what we've been working on this month during August. But before we talk about that, let me remind you that the mirror block, that's our block of the month for August, and it is completely free. All you have to do is go to our website, www.sewincommon.com, and you can get your free copy of it. We have lots of free blocks of the month over there, so take a look. There might be others that you want to. And there's still about a week left for you to join the Snowball Table Runner contest. I want to start seeing those pictures in the Facebook page, Sew in Common, so that we can judge them, because you could win a copy of our Build-A-Quilt system, our basic block ones part of the system. So get those in there. You only have to make 15 of those. There's some videos here on the channel that'll tell you more about that. I hope you all are getting those made and getting ready to post your photos this week. But this is our block of the month for August, Mirror. But a lot of what we've been talking about this month is the Kaleidoscope quilt, because what did I do with my book? Oh, there it is. I thought I might have put it somewhere where I can find it. So you all know probably Lori Holt, fantastic quilter. She quilts in a traditional way with their sewing machine. Nothing wrong with that. I've done it, and I've done it by hand for over 55 years. But we're doing all of the piecing and stuff on our embroidery machine. And so I took her book, and I will link below how you can find a copy of the book and all. I'm not sponsored by her or the company, anything like that. This is just the information that I used in the quilt that I decided to use. So I took the one block, the Kaleidoscope block, and blew it up into a 40 by 40 quilt. And the last couple weeks has been that journey. You can go back and watch those. I'll link the first one so you can start watching those if you want to catch up till today, because today we're talking about the finished quilting. And blew this up with the Build-A-Quilt system to make it a 40 by 40 quilt. And so I did use Lori's fabric. I know I've mentioned this, but just for folks that haven't been around yet, I just want to let you know the fabric she uses in here is called Bee Cross Stitch. In fact, instead of showing you a picture in the book, I'm going to show you the fabric. That's the fabric I use, the blue one. It's called denim, and you can see the little cross stitches on it, right? And then my secondary color was just a white that I had in my stash. And so that's what I made the quilt out. And you've seen it. You can see the video and all from last week. It turned out beautifully. I'm loving it. I can't wait to get it, the quilting finished on it. So that's what we're going to do today. And in part of the video, I'm walking you through step by step the process for building your quilt sandwich, because I'm using kind of a two-step basting technique, and you'll see why. So just keep watching and you'll see why I did that. It's because I cheated a little, and I'll tell you about that too. So there can always be workarounds, right? There are rules, but once you understand the rules, then you know how to play with the rules and break them a little bit if you want to, right? So I created my own quilting pattern for this. This is not something commercially available, and I'm doing it on my machine. Part of what I'm showing you today also is how to use templates for placement with your quilting. And so you'll see that section today as well. And I wanted to talk first of all about the quilting design, how I came up with it. So the name of the quilt is the Kaleidoscope, right? So I thought, I've been thinking long and hard about the actual quilting. And I thought, I could just do a stipple and it would look fine. It would look great. It would be quilted. It would be done. It would be up on my wall by now. But I thought, let's make it a little bit special, because the quilt has a name. Lori designed it to look like a kaleidoscope. If you see her version where she does each one of the squares in 3 different colors to give it that burst of kaleidoscope color, I thought, maybe I should pay some homage to that too. So when I came up with the design, I decided that the thread color I would use for the top quilting would be variegated, because I'm only using these two. This is it. That's the only color in the fabric, right? So let's add a little bit more color to it. So I've told you all before that this 50, is it 5520? Let me put on my magnifiers here for a sec. 5220 from Isocord is my favorite quilting thread. That really light, minty aqua. It's just beautiful, and it blends with everything. Like it would even blend in if I wanted to quilt that square with it. It's kind of a chameleon that way. Well, I got to thinking about, this would be a beautiful color to quilt this with if I just wanted to use one color. But I thought, well, if I use a variegated, what do I want? So I got out a lot of variegateds. I got out one that was pinks and yellows. That would be pretty. But pinks and yellows aren't really a part of my decor scheme. So I thought, maybe not, since it's going to hang on the wall. Maybe not. Then I was looking and I found an Isocord variegated. Let me undo it here. Gosh, it looks like I'm getting a little bit of a long tail. Let me wrap some of this up. Okay, there we go. This Isocord. Look, klutz today. Look at this compared to this. So this color is in this thread. Okay, that's a thumbs up, right? Because now I've got that color that I like so much. But this, let's lay it on top of this white. Excuse me, this white, and see if you can see it. Do you see the purple and white? And there's even, I know you can't see it there, but there's even some blue in it, which kind of goes with that. So this thread won the thread contest for quilting. It is Isocord 9971. 9971. And I like to think of it as the sister or the cousin to this one. And I'm going to keep this one close handy because sometimes you find new favorites, right? I love that. I love using variegated thread when I quilt. It really adds a depth to the overall quilting. And I'm someone who likes my quilting to kind of sink in. Like, look up on my snowball. It's quilted with this. You can't tell. I mean, you can't even really see it. Not even on the light colored ones. I like my piecing, which I've taken a lot of time and care with. Even on our embroidery machine, we take time and care with our piecing. So I like the quilting to kind of sink in. And that also kind of, while you're snuggled up into it, you might be looking at it closer and things pop out at you, kind of little presents. I like that idea. So I like that. And I like using variegated because it can give depth. So this, I think, is going to be my new favorite variegated because it really goes with this one. But for my bobbin thread, normally for my bobbin thread, I use, for a wall quilt or smaller things, I'll use just a white general embroidery bobbin. It works perfectly. But I thought, because I chose this for my backing fabric. Now, normally when I hang things on the wall, I'll be honest, I'll use a muslin. Nobody's going to see it. I don't want to put pretty fabric on the back where it's not going to be seen. I like to save the pretty for everybody to see. Are you like that? Yeah, let me know what you think about that in the comments. So I had so much of this, and I know I won't make another kaleidoscope in this color. I'm probably going to make another one of those in another color because she's got a color that's very similar to this. So it's like tugging at me to go buy my yardage and get going on it. But I thought, well, let's just go ahead and use this. And you'll see that's where my cheating comes in, which you're going to see here in a little bit. So I decided that if this is going to be my backing fabric, I don't want this bobbin thread to be white. I don't want the white on here. It could be because those little cross stitches are white. It could be white. but I thought I'd rather have something that blends with this. So I found a glide thread that I had. Look at that. Now, does that not go? Mm-hmm. And it goes really good with this too. So this one for the bobbin is glide. And let me put the magnifiers back on and see. This is glide number 35405, sapphire. Sapphire, I think that's what it is. But now this has a lot number. You don't see lot numbers on. You don't need to see this. You don't see lot numbers on thread very often. This has a lot number, and I'm going to give it to you because I don't know how far off their lots can be. Like when you buy fabric in lot numbers, they can be really, really different. I don't know if that's the case with Glide. I've only used Glide for a few years and I don't use it a lot, but they have some colors and they have some variegateds that I love. So I do use them. Great thread. Absolutely great thread. And this is one like Isacord that I would use for my piecing and stuff, like in a grayish color, because it doesn't have that super high sheen to it like Floriani does. That's just for the beautiful top stuff, in my opinion. So this is lot P070BB or 88. I think it's supposed to be BB as in bubble, I think. So that might be, if you use Glide and you know more about their lot numbers versus their color numbers, drop us a note in the comments and then we can all learn something new. But this is the color I'm using for my bobbin. So this is the only color that will get seen on the back of the quilt. And then this is going to be my top thread for my top quilting. So in the video, I'm going to show you some tools that I've used for setting up the basting. And I mainly did the basting one because I'm doing this two-part technique, but I also did the basting because, you know, I just did a thing saying that we had reached 5,000 subscribers. You guys, I am filming this for you the day. I always film the day before the day it goes live. So this is technically, you're seeing me on a Saturday. As of today, within the week, we've gone from 5,000 subscribers, 7,000 plus. You guys, thank you. Oh my gosh. I am so blown away. I'm so blown away, you guys. Thank you so very, very much. This just thrills my heart to know that there's 7,000 people out there that either likes to hear me prattle on and talk about quilting, or that just really love quilting as much as I do. I just love it. So that's why I wanted to do, I will be doing some repeats of some basic things in the videos coming up, because I know we do have a lot of brand new quilters. Now, some of those 7,000 can be folks that have been quilting forever, but I know there's lots of new folks. So I'm going to take you through that today. I wanted to share something with you too. I got a question this week by somebody who is a new quilter. And she said, how long does it take to make a quilt? And that's a really legitimate question, because especially in today's world, we think of everything in how much time is it going to take me? How efficient is it going to be? How fast can I get it done? Because my schedule, either it's on my phone or like me, I still write stuff down and put it on the phone, is full. You know, where can I put this in? So I'm going to tell you my thought. Quilting a quilt, making a quilt takes as long as it takes because it's art, right? We're artists. I tell you that every time, and I believe it in my art. We're artists. Our art is fabric and thread. I don't think Picasso ever sat down and said, boy, I got to crank out 4 or 5 of these babies today. No. I don't think Leonardo ever sat down and said, oh, you know, I got to figure out, I got to invent 4 or 5 new things today. Don't think they ever did that, because art is something that comes from inside and it comes out. And so it's not something you sit down and go start to finish, I'm done today. 5 hours, 4 hours, 2 hours. Not typically. Because if you're like me and quilters, a lot of quilters, you're in love with this right here. you're in love with the fabric. Why would you ever want to time how much time it takes to pick out fabric? It took me, so I've had that book for a long time, since it first came out. I was going to do it in a Tula fabric, because you guys know I'm Tula Nutso, right? And then I thought, oh, but that cross stitch fabric looks so pretty. So I looked, I chose colors. I had 7 of those bee cross stitch fabrics picked out at one time until I narrowed it down to the denim. Why would you ever want to cut that time? Because that's part of the love, the art of being a quilter, is this love of fabric. It's kind of the same way with thread. It took me a good 5 hours to figure out that I was going to use this thread for my top quilting and this thread for my bobbin thread. Because I was in here, I was laying them out on my swatches. I was having my husband come in. Not that he cared at all, but you know, I like, hey, honey, what do you think? It's going to be hanging in your home. I took that time, but that time is joyous. And that was production time in the life of making a quilt. Now, some days I sit down and go, this is what I'm quilting with. Give me that white bobbin and I'm ready to go. But other parts of that quilt might have taken a long time. Or maybe I've got the fabric. I've got a curated bundle of fabric and I love it and I'm going to do it. That's what I'm using. That's fine. That was maybe a pretty quick choice for you. Maybe planning the quilting is what's going to take you time. You never know. You might start out with a project going A, B, C. I've got it all ready. I'm done. I'm efficient. I'm ready to go. I believe in being organized for sure. But counting the time it takes, I don't think you should put that kind of pressure on yourself, because it just is what it is. Maybe I take 10 minutes today. Maybe I take 2 hours. You know, when I get the most time to myself to do my own stuff is on Mondays, actually. Husband goes back off to work. I've got my work stuff done because I do some other things. I still write and do research. So that was done. That gets done. And I have planned for Sew in Common because that's my love. But I give myself the time on Mondays to do my own. And I can sit around and I can pull out my boxes of fabric and I love it. I might never sit down and actually stitch, but it doesn't mean that the planning time wasn't production or productive time. So don't put that kind of stress on yourself. Just let yourself be free to enjoy it. If it takes you from day 1 to day 487 to get a quilt done, that quilt was done in the right amount of time. Okay, think of it like that. That's what I think anyway. So to answer the question that I got, how long does it take a quilt to be done? As long as it takes. Alrighty. So that's my therapy, my words of wisdom, whatever you want to say, for this week's video. Now let's get into our quilting. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to go over, I filmed this part because I had to film it in the other room, the creating of the quilt sandwich. Then we'll talk about doing templates, what that's all about. And then we'll come back and we'll be doing some quilting right here at the machine. So see you back here in just a minute. Okay, here we are, everybody. We are in one of my bedrooms, and I've got the quilt laid out on top of the backing fabric because I'm going to walk you through doing the quilt sandwich. I know we have a lot of new quilters who want to see this process, and somebody might pick up a tip even if you've been doing it for a long time. So here is our quilt laid out. Now, as you can see, from here to here and at the top, plenty of space. And I always say, leave yourself 3 or 4 inches. That way, if there's any shifting of the quilt, you're not going to get in trouble. But you'll notice that on my edges, I only have about 2.5 inches. So I'm breaking my own rule there a little bit, but I'm going to do kind of a double basting technique to kind of save me from having that shifting problem and see if I can get away with it. And if I don't, then you'll know it. I would never do that on a bed quilt. I would always make sure I have my 3 to 4 inches on all 4 sides. But for this smaller 40 by 40, I'm going to try and get away with it. And we'll see, right? So I've chosen for my backing fabric the same bee cross stitch fabric by Lori Holt that I used in the quilt itself. And I will link down in the description, again, a link where I found my Kaleidoscope book and my bee cross stitch fabric. And there are tons of colors in the bee cross stitch fabric, so you could choose whatever you like. Of course, I used the Build-A-Quilt system to piece my blocks and created this size on my own. This size is not in the book, but if you're going to make this, this is like one of the Kaleidoscope blocks. If you're going to make this, I have used to get this size, the 5-inch blocks, segment blocks from the Build-A-Quilt, okay, from the basic block set 1. So I will link that information as well. But I did have to translate a little bit of it because she uses some rectangles in here for her edging, which we don't have in that set, but I adapted that with the squares. So it was pretty easy to do that. But you would have to get your book and all of that to get the pattern and stuff. So anyway, I will link that. So that is my quilt. Now I'm going to take the quilt apart and we're going to put the batting on. And yeah, I know there's some wrinkles in here, but I will have ironed that before we're done. So let me lay out the batting now. We'll talk. Okay, so I've got my batting laid out. Now, if I were doing a bed quilt, I would probably be using 100% cotton. I might use a wool, or if I were giving it as a gift, or if I was making a special quilt for myself, I'd use bamboo. I love bamboo batting. One, it's sustainable. It doesn't, you know, you don't have to cut down those trees and stuff, but so it's a sustainable product, but I love how it feels mostly. It's just the right amount of warmth or coolness that you need in a quilt. I love it. But to be honest, for a wall hanging, I use just a good old store-bought 80/20. And that's what I've bought here. It's Quilters. It's from Fairfield. Quilters 80/20. Breathable with a smooth finish. Yeah, that's fine. It's 80% cotton, 20% polyester. I never ever use 100% polyester, that lofty stuff. I never use that. I don't think it is a good batting for quilts. But for a wall hanging, I think the 80/20 works just fine. I don't need my best. It's going to hold up. It's going to be nice on the wall, and I haven't paid an arm and a leg for it. And I know I got that big piece. I think this is, let me bring it back over. I think this is a king size. Let's see. I know it says here. Yeah, it is. Oh, they call it an extra large, but it would be like a king size batting. And I think I ended up getting it for $20 because it was on sale. So for a wall hanging, that's fine. Now for cutting my batting and my backing fabric, I have a 12-year-old pair of Fiskars, believe it or not. You know, I have the good gingers and all of that I use on fabric. But when I'm cutting my backing fabric or trimming and cutting my batting, I have this pair of scissors. It's a nice long blade, and that's all I use it for. Let me see if I can, get that out. See, it's a nice long bladed scissor, and they cut beautifully even to this day. Fiskar makes a good scissor, but that's all I use it for, and that's why I can still use it and get a good cut from it. And that's what I'm going to tell you for all of your scissors. If they have covers, use them. Take care of your tools, and they will last you for years and years and years. Okay, so for the basting, because now we're going to talk about basting, I am going to baste my batting to my backing, and the first thing I'm going to do is fold this half of it over. Okay, so I've got it folded back, and I am going to first use a basting spray. On small projects, I love basting with basting spray, and I typically like using OTA 505 temporary adhesive for fabric. It's a beautiful hold. And for a project this large, even though it's a smaller quilt, for something this large, this will still give you a really good hold. There are other basting sprays, and I've tried them, and I use them for other things, like June Taylor. To me, June Taylor's basting spray has a really lovely light hold. So if I'm doing smaller projects, pillows or placemats or table runners or decorations, anything like that, then I will use that basting spray. But for my quilts, if I'm going to use any kind of a spray basting, I always use the Oda 505. It's just my favorite. Try out the different ones, see what you like best, but that's what I recommend. And then I was telling you, I'm going to do kind of a double basting, because over here on the sides, in order to keep my quilt from jiggling around, I'm going to also use the pin basting method only on those left and right sides. And the pins are these big oversized looking safety pins. They have a little bit of a curve in them. And then I found a tool not too long ago called the Quick Clip, and this helps you to fasten these without hurting your finger. And so like I said, I've only been using it a few years, but I really like it now when I do pin basting. And since I've had carpal tunnel surgery on both hands, it takes a little stress off. So I'm going to be using that tool today as well. So the first thing I do is I prep my basting spray by shaking my can. I don't know if you have to, but I just do. I'm from that generation where everything had to be shaken up in the can. All right, hang on, let me take the lid off. Okie doke. So I've shaken it up. I've taken the lid off. Now I always spray the basting spray on the batting. I don't spray it on the fabric. And you don't need to soak this in any way. I just give a nice spray. Let me move around to the other side here. This also helps you make sure that you're getting it where you want it to. You're not trying to do the whole thing. So I think I have plenty. Now I'm going to come back around and we're going to unfold this onto the fabric. Okay, so I flipped it back over and pressed it down, and you can tell the difference. See how this is all still lofty over here and stuff, and how this is nice and smooth now? That's because it's bonded to the fabric. And let's take a look here at the corner. I always pick up a corner and see it's on there. That's great. And I always check a few areas. Now, if it isn't adhering on the sides, like if it's about an inch or so in, I don't necessarily worry about that. But in this case, I wanted this binding as far out on the edge as I could get it, because I'm kind of cheating on that amount of fabric. So this is nicely basted on here. And I will tell you that this will stay basted for at least a week. I don't ever have to worry. In fact, to be honest, I have a quilt sitting over in a box. It's an unfinished object. It's ready to be quilted. It's in the quilt sandwich. It's been that way for 6 years and it's still basted. And I just use the 505 spray. Don't do as I do on that one, okay? I should get that finished. The problem is when I made it from a kit from a very popular embroidery company, which I won't mention because the problem isn't their problem, it's mine. They put a lot of tchotchkes on their quilts, and it makes them beautiful. But I sewed them all on before I did the quilting. And so now I have to quilt around it. So it's going to take a lot of special hand quilting. And I haven't sat down to do it. Okay. So I have my fabric all laid out, and I have this side rolled back. And so now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to spray it. And now this is the smaller can. This is 6.22 ounces. They have a larger can too, but these smaller cans last me a good long time because you aren't using a lot. Like I said, you're not soaking I'm just going to get my edge good, but you're not soaking or anything like that. And because you're putting it down very carefully, I'm not getting it all over. All right, so now I've laid this back out and I'm going to smooth it out. Okay, so I have my other side all basted down with the spray. As you can see, it's all nice and stuck on. So, and I've gone ahead and laid out my quilt on top of it. I've given myself as much room as possible on each of those left and right sides. And now I'm going to baste the quilt to the batting. Here's a tip for you. If you don't want the spray adhesive on the back of your quilt, which will wash out, but if you don't want it there, go ahead and spray baste your batting to your backing fabric and then do a traditional pin basting on your quilt top. I do that quite frequently as well. And to do that, just lay your hand down. I start in the middle, but I'll show you down here where I can reach. Lay your hand out, put a pin here at your thumb and here at your finger, and then rotate. Put one over here at your finger, rotate. Put one over here at your thumb, rotate. Put one over at your finger, and move around your quilt that way. We used to call that the thumb and finger method for pin basting. And so you can easily do that to baste your top to your backing and batting. But go ahead and use the basting spray on your backing and batting together. Or like I'm going to do, I'm going to spray baste because again, now this is a wall hanging. If I were going to give this, especially a child's quilt, then I would definitely pin baste. I don't want chemicals in there that could irritate a child's skin, even after I wash. You know, I want to be as clean in that way as possible. But for this wall hanging, I'm not going to worry about it too much. So I'm going to roll back half of my quilt and we'll do the basting. Okay, so I have half of it laid back. Now I'm going to step around to the side because I want to use my edges as my guide when I'm spraying my basting spray. I don't want to put basting spray out here or out here because nothing's going on top of it. So I'm just kind of using the edges of my quilt as my guide. In fact, I'm just going to do a little bit of a spray and then spray in here. Now I know I can come out to about right there, but I'm not too worried about these edges on here because I'm going to do that pin basting. There we go. All right, now I'm going to roll this out and prep the other side. Okay, so I finished basting this other half over here, and now I have the whole thing basted down with spray adhesive. So technically, I'm done basting. I'm good to go. But I want to do that double basting technique just to give myself a little insurance since I'm kind of literally riding the ragged edge right here. So this is how I'm going to do that. Let's walk over to this side. Whenever I pin baste, I always kind of start in the middle. So I'm going to put some pins along this long edge here and that long edge there. That's the sides. And I'm going to use these pins right here. So let me put one in and then I'll show you. I can't hold the camera and do both. So let me do one and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so the pin basting is done and you can see I've just done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on each of these edges. Now let me reiterate, I don't recommend doing this for full-size bed quilts. For full-size bed quilts, make sure you have 3 to 4 inches, I say 4, on the outside edges all the way around. But because I had so much of this fabric left over, I decided to go ahead and not waste it. I'm using it for the backing, so I'm just giving myself a little extra insurance by doing the spray basting everywhere and some pin basting on these edges. And as I get to those edges in the quilting, I'll just take them out, do the quilting, and all will be well. So I'm completely basted now. I'm ready to go and put this in the hoop and start the quilting. So let's go back to the studio and start doing the quilting. Okay, everybody, before we move over to the studio to do the quilting, I want to talk about templates while we're here. A quilting template is imperative when you are doing quilting in the hoop, your finished quilting. It's because it allows you, as you see here, to place your needle exactly where you want it to be. So you put this on here, you move your needle around to where it needs to be, then you remove your template, and when you stitch out, your pattern's going to be right where you want. And there's a couple ways you can do that. You can use regular sheet paper. If your pieces are larger than a normal piece of paper, you'll just tile them together with some tape so that they're all one piece. So this design is actually 2 pieces that I had to cut out that were rectangles, and I tiled them together so they would fit. But that is one design for myself. And this is a great way to do this too. If I didn't have a bigger hoop to do this, I could have done this in 4 smaller sections and still gotten the same effect. So what I use though is a sticky back template paper. You can get them from several places. You can get them from OESD. Dime makes one. Now, I like Dime's older one that's more of a paper. I know their newer one is more of a very thin acetate or acrylic. I don't like it as well. That's just my personal feeling though. I know I'm not quite sure why they changed things over, but I know they did back in December. But if that's the one you can get it. I'm sure it will work for you. It's just not, I like the paper better. It's just a personal preference, that's all. And then I think Kimberbelt might even do one. So check around, you can get one, but definitely either use regular copy paper or a sticky back template paper because you're going to need one. And then you'll do a template for each and every quilting pattern that you're going to use. Now, if you're only going to be doing edge to edge, you might only have 1 or 2, like an A and a B side. But if you're going to be doing more of a custom, the way I am with this quilt, I have this one for the center, but then I have this one that is going to be all of my rectangles. It's even going to be my rectangles on the side. Okay, so that's one. And then I have these square ones that'll be my 4 corner squares here and down here. And I just trim around them a little bit, and I can peel them back, and then they can be put back on this shiny backing paper. So whatever you do, whatever choice you use, paper or template paper, when you're done with them, you can keep them because you'll use your patterns again, I'm sure, wherever you get your patterns, or if you've designed your own patterns, or if you've purchased our patterns, you'll use them again. So keep the templates. You don't have to remake them that way. Alrighty, so that is the whole deal with templates. Highly, highly, highly recommend you use them. Otherwise, you're not going to know where your design is going to land. And this will help you get very, very accurate, precise placement. Okay, so let's now move over to the actual machine in the studio and start quilting. Okay, everybody, here we are at the machine, and I have hooped up my center. Now, I know it looks kind of wiggly in here, but believe me when I say, because everything matches up with my template, I'm in a good place. Let's talk about putting this in here. So I have a little bit, normally we go from one side to the other. On this quilt, I'm starting with the center, and I'm kind of going to be working it a little bit differently. I'm going to be working the center, then I'm going to be working this rectangle and this rectangle, then this rectangle and this rectangle, and then the corners, and then I'll work side to side after that. So I'm kind of doing the biggest part of the center first. Now there's some fabric over here, so I just gently roll it up. You might have a hoop guard if you use magnetic hoop the way I am here, to kind of keep everything out of the range. I just forgot to put mine on, but those are really handy. I'm already threaded up with my variegated on top and my glide, that denim blue for my bobbin. Now, I showed you in the part of the video with the templates how I use a pin to actually get that center point right in the center of my quilt. That was a nice little way to give myself some extra benefit there on that. Now, I am not going to be pulling up the thread and tying it off the way we do traditionally. This is going to put some very, very minuscule, I mean ultra tiny little knots on the back. I don't care. You don't see them. And in this case, since it's going on the wall, you're never going to see them. The only time I would ever bring up my thread and weave them in like we do in traditional quilting is if I were giving this as a gift. Otherwise, they're so small. I've never had anyone go, oh, there's knots on the back of this quilt in my household yet. Never, ever. So I've got my light turned off here, so it might be easier for you guys to see when you turn the light on, even at level 1, it gets really glary. So I've got that turned off. So now I know I'm in the right space because I've used my keys on my machine to move my needle right to the center of my design. So when I put my foot down and I put my needle down, it goes right in the center. It's right where it needs to be. So I love that. That's good. So now I'm just going to peel off my template. And I'm going to save this template because I can use it again for this design. And you kind of see the design a bit, see how it's going to be kind of kaleidoscopy, like a kaleidoscope would, all the fractions and the fractals and stuff. That's why I loved it when I put this together. I thought, oh, it's going to actually hopefully look really like a kaleidoscope. So I'm just putting, since my template was tiled together, I just put it back on the 2 pieces to make 1 piece, and now I can save that. Alrighty, so I'm just gonna straighten things up here a little bit. There we go. There we go. Now we're gonna put that down. And this is going to start. And boy, my stand is really precarious back there right now. Whew. Now, I will tell you, I only have this going at about 600 stitches a minute because I kind of wanted you to be able to see what it's doing. But you can, of course, go faster. I never go above 800. My machine will go up to 10 something, but I don't go that high. Again, I don't quilt for speed. Now, will every little bitty bit of this be quilted? No, that's not how I quilt. I centered that in there as if it were a design part. You don't need to worry about quilting every little milli-inch or millimeter of your design or of your space. It's getting most of it, I will tell you that. But you don't have to have every little millimeter filled with stitching. You can. Micro stippling and all of that can be quite beautiful. It's not my preferred type of quilting. There's nothing wrong with it. For me, it makes my quilts too stiff. But when I see it and when I judge it, when I'm doing judging, oh, I love it. And yes, there are a few wrinkles in here. That's not going to be a problem because I will press all this out once it's done quilted. Your piece is going to get wrinkly again while you're quilting. It's just because that's what cotton does, and you have to fold it and unfold it a lot. Now, look, guys, look at how that's turning out with the colors. I'm going to bring this up a little bit to see if you can see it better. Look at all the colors. Isn't it pretty? I know they look a little flat here, but boy, you should see them in person. They're really beautiful. I love how this is turning out. So this whole piece done at 600, my machine's telling me, is going to take a total of 4 minutes to quilt. But it's fine, 4 minutes. That's cool. While it's doing that, I can be taking my next template piece, and to get it off the template paper, I usually use a little straight pin and start peeling it off, and then I can have it ready for my next piece. Now, when these come off, when you use this sticky back template paper, if you use it, it can be really sticky. So if you want to, take and press it lightly against your sweatshirt or something, not like your good clothes, but like a sweatshirt or something like that, and just get a little of that sticky off. It'll still be plenty sticky, but otherwise it can be a little extra sticky, but it'll last you a good long time. I can do a whole quilt with one template set typically. I don't typically have to do a second one. And if it starts to get to the point where this isn't going to stick, I put a little 505 spray on there. Or I'll just stick a little double piece of tape back there to stick it on while I'm getting everything lined up. Oh, I'm loving how this turned out. Oh, this is going to be so nice when it's finished. I'm going to love it. So I'm not going to quilt the whole thing for you today. I'm going to quilt this piece and one of these rectangles for you. And then I will be posting a photograph later in the week to show you how it turned out. Now you can see here, I'm using this big 12 by 12 hoop because I can. But when I go to start doing my smaller pieces, typically I will use a smaller hoop. I try to use hoops that are only the maximum size that I need for quilting that particular area, and that helps control any slippage. Now, for today, because I don't have my other hoops available, I'm going to use this one for the next design too. But normally I would switch out now to a smaller design. So let me go and bring up my next quilting design, which is going to be our rectangular design. Unless it's giving, oh shoot, it's giving me problems here. For some reason, sometimes it says my stuff isn't loaded when I know it is. All right, let me take that out. Make sure everything is all nice and good where it is. We'll give that a moment. So I'm going to take this off, and I just slide this out. With this magnetic one, I like that you can just bring it up over the head of your machine and just like rest it there while you're moving stuff about. I like that. But since I need to kind of show you guys some stuff, I'm just going to slip it off and actually put it around my neck. So let's bring this out a little bit and look at the quilting. Didn't it turn out nice? Oh, I love it. And I love the colors. So the next piece I'm going to be doing is this rectangle. So I'm going to place my, so I'm going to just kind of defuzz it a little bit. I'm going to take my rectangle and place it on here, on my fabric. Now what I do is I like to take and do a little bit of measurement here. From the outside edge to there is a 1/4 inch, and from the outside there. All right, so this needs to move over just a little bit. Normally I would pull this out and pull it over to my table and really kind of play with getting this centered up. But this idea of the kaleidoscope is kind of really friendly in that it doesn't have to be exact and perfect, because a kaleidoscope is all kinds of fractally crazy looking stuff. So here we go. That's laid out there. I like that. Now, what I like to do is I kind of like to bring my fabric up, my little point there, up under where my needle's going to be. And I like to hold it. I like to see, can I get it as close to that dot so I have the minimal amount of moving to do? How close can I get it? That looks pretty close. I know I need to do a little moving, but let's see. Okay. I'm going to, oh shoot, it's going to want me to take my hoop out. Okay, give me just 1 second to fix. Okay, so here we are back. I had to actually turn my machine on and off. For some reason it got out of kilter. I'm just gonna double check my thread is. where it needs to be. And I've lined it up already here. It's actually over where it needs to be now. So I'm going to pop this out and we're ready to stitch. And while that is doing that, so this one at 600 stitches a minute takes 3 minutes to quilt out. So if you're doing 700 or 800, this is going to take a lot less time. And this one is harder to see on the dark for you guys, but can I tell you the color is really showing up beautifully. Well, look at the back of this too. We didn't do that before. So what I did with this is I took the exact same design that I was using and I created it into a rectangle, which basically, when I created this, so that design I created into a rectangle. So I chose the same height, I just made it shorter, narrower. And how I did that was by measuring the inside distance of my finished square or my finished rectangle, whichever I was doing, and ended up with a beautiful size to fit these rectangular pieces. And we actually know that these rectangles are all squares, right? Because that's how we had to translate it from the original traditional pattern to a build-a-block pattern. But instead of doing a quilting square by square, because I have a bigger hoop, I have quilted them as rectangles. Now, if you have a smaller hoop and that's all you have, when you choose your pattern for your quilting, whether you're doing this or any quilt, you would just choose smaller pieces to do. You'd have more hoopings to do than someone using a bigger hoop, but you would eventually turn out with the same look. It would just take you more hoopings. More hoopings is a smaller addition of time, not a huge addition of time. And we're almost done with this one. Oh, it's turning out really pretty. I love it. I love how this is turning out. And when I created my quilting, I created it with a stitch length of 3.0. A 3.0, a 3.25, a 3.5 will give you like a beautiful hand quilted look. So I love that. All righty. So we are done with this one. I'm just going to actually, I'm just going to set this off to the side. And now we can look at this piece. Now, these open areas are meant to be open, so don't let those freak you out. They're supposed to be that way. That's how I created the quilting. And let me look at the back. Oh, gosh, yes. Look at that back with that blue. Didn't that turn out beautifully? Oh, my goodness. I'm just in heaven with this now. I can't wait. I think I'll be up all night working on this because I want to be able to show you the finished project as soon as possible. Let's flip back over now to our main camera and we can finish up. Okay, guys, what do you think? Isn't it, guys, girls and guys? What do you think? Isn't it great? Oh, I just love it. And I just dropped something. Oh, well, let me set this other camera over here so I don't knock it on the floor. But I just love how this is turning out. And golly, do I love the back of it. It's just, there we go. It's quilting beautiful with that color. So if I were ever to do this fabric on a quilt and I wanted it to blend in just seamlessly, I would use that. So if you ever use the B cross stitch from Lori Holt, glide, oh gosh, I gave you the number at the beginning and what I dropped was my magnifier, so I can't see that itty bitty bitty. Here, I have another magnifying glass. I have more magnifying glasses than Carter has pills, I think, sometimes. There we go. There we go. It is number 35405. 35405. It is a perfect blendable match for the Bee Cross Stitch Denim by Lori Holt, if you want to know. So as soon as this is finished, which will either be later on today, Sunday, your time, or probably Monday, maybe Tuesday. We'll see. But as soon as I get it done, I'll do a quick little show you and I'll do pictures, okay? Maybe I'll do a whole blog post about it or something so that everybody can see it. All right, folks. So let's not forget our block of the month, which is our free block of the month, which you can find all of our free blocks of the month, and our Build a Quilt in the Hoop block basic set 1, which you need to make this kaleidoscope quilt with your embroidery machine. So you need to get Lori's book, and I'm going to give you information below. You need our basic block set 1. Ask your questions before you buy, folks. Our digital products are non-refundable because once that digital product goes out to you, I can't get it back when I get a refund. So they're non-refundable. You understand that. That's the way it is in the industry. Digital products are typically non-refundable. But ask me any question you want to ask me, and be as specific as you need to be to get your questions answered, okay? And you can contact me at support@sewandcommon.com because you will need the Build a Quilt system and you will need Lori's book if you decide you want to make this version of her kaleidoscope quilt. And I hope you do. I hope someone else makes it because it's been fun. I've loved it. It is turning out to be exactly what I wanted it to be. And part of that is because I didn't rush it. Back to our earlier discussion. Didn't rush it. No. All right. So again, welcome to all 7,000 plus of our subscribers, our new folks and the folks that have been with us since the beginning, in the middle, and everywhere in between. Thank you all so much for joining me for building quilts with our embroidery machine, with a little bit on our sewing machine. But remember, any sewing you do on your sewing machine that isn't, like doing your binding at the end and stuff like that, all has guidelines. So you don't need your 1/4 inch foot or anything like that. So if that has stopped you in the past from quilting because that piecing with a 1/4 inch seam has scared you, or you're afraid you can't get it right, or you had trouble getting it perfect, perfect hurts. Perfect will take away the joy of the good, in my opinion. So there's no perfect. But if that's been keeping you from it, you don't have to worry about it with Build a Quilt because those lines are built in. You can follow a line. You got it. You've got a very accurate, good seam, 1/4 inch to go with your project. So no problems there at all. All right, everyone. So please join the 7,000 of us that love to quilt together. I'd love to have you as part of our Sew in Common family. The more, the merrier. Comment, leave ideas, ask questions, put out ideas for things that you'd like to see, quilts you'd like to do. I'm going to be doing more translation videos of translating older quilt block ideas into the Build a Quilt system so that you kind of get used to doing that translation yourself. We've got a new Build a Quilt package coming out later in the fall before the holidays. That is going to be our Build a Quilt Basics 2. And then right at the beginning of the new year, I'm going to try and have what I'm going to call an add-on set come out, because it's going to be not typically some of our basic segment blocks that we use, but things that one of the reasons that we had to change up some of our blocks that we did before, some of the reasons I changed them, because you guys didn't have those pieces. So I won't tell you which ones they are yet, because I know at least 2 of them that are going to go into that little set. It's going to be a smaller add-on piece. But anyway, don't go anywhere without getting your first set. It is right now still at the introductory price, $39.99, I believe. But as of September 15th, so that's only a few weeks away, it's going up to its regular price of $50 for that basic first set. So get it while it's available at that reduced introductory price and save yourself a little bit of money, because you can put that into your fabric and thread. All right, everybody, please do me another favor. Like the videos. Would you please click the little like button? That helps the YouTube algorithm make sure that more people can see our videos, because I found out this week that our videos are being compared, and our Build a Quilt system is being compared to traditional quilting videos. And we're not that, right? We're different than that. We still are quilters and we still make the same kinds of things, but the technique and all we use is different. So by liking the videos and subscribing, their algorithm will now kind of take us out of that category a little bit and kind of push us out more. So more people that are embroiderers who want to quilt, because that's kind of what a lot of you are, can find us more easily. So would you do me a huge favor and click the like button? And if you haven't, click the subscribe button too, please. Thank you so much. Until next week, everybody, of course, we'll have new short videos this coming week, and probably another smaller full video at some point. But at least we'll have short videos again throughout the week. So until next time, everybody, you know it, go sew life beautiful, and I'll see you soon.